Two of the main areas in which I operate professionally were hit by the internet as if by a typhoon. They hadn't seen it coming and they didn't know what to do with it. And those two areas had a lot in common: classical music and print journalism. They're both what are known as mature markets. In other words, markets that were unlikely to grow any further beyond their present dimensions, and were in fact already in some kind of decline when this new medium came along, and they were simply unprepared to how to deal to cope with it. And it seemed to me that the same sort of lessons applied both to print and to writing as it does to music. If the old medium doesn't work, get out and engage with the new one. And so many of the things that we've seen going wrong in classical music, so much of the star system, so much of the over-management of classical music, the over-planning, the programs that are planned 5 years in advance, so that by the time a musician gets on stage, he's forgotten the reason why he's performing this particular music on this particular night. So many of those things are actually rendered unnecessary by the ability to communicate live with an audience, live with like-minded people, and to grab the moment, to grab the medium. And so if one separates the two things as a writer, yes, I'm still active in print journalism. Yes, I've been assistant editor of a newspaper, and yes, I still function with the old media of radio and television. But on the internet, one has these opportunities to talk to people through a blog, to talk to them through Twitter, to engage with sites like this one, and seek to find people who are looking for a way into the 21st century, because it's quite clear that neither the culture nor the cultural economy are going to function the same way in this century as they did in the last. And that's a very, very exciting prospect. For musicians, the prospect's even more exciting, because for the first time probably since the time of Bach and Handel, they can actually take their destiny into their hands. They don't have to ask anyone's permission about what they do and how they do it. They can eliminate managements, they can eliminate halls, they can eliminate the whole realm of rights and lawyers and say, I am my music, I own my music, I decide how I want to present that music to a public. And that's a fantastically liberating thing. Those musicians who have taken it up, none of them has yet become rich, but they've certainly become happier bunnies, and the music that they make is also very often more spontaneous, more attuned to the times. On top of the new medium, we've also been hit by this recession or depression, or call it what you will. It's change of lifetime, isn't it? It's a kind of economic menopause, and we don't know what's going to lie beyond that menopause and how we are going to enjoy the period beyond that. So as far as the old record industry goes, well, I wrote its epitaph in this book, which is called Maestro's Masterpieces and Madness. The American title was The Life and Death of Classical Music. The record industry lasted for 100 years. It served a fantastic purpose. It was a global educator. Records served the same purpose as the Victorian Public Library. It made music accessible to people who would otherwise never have thought of going into a concert hall or an opera house, never had been able to find their way in through the door, and records were there. They could listen to it in the privacy of their own home, they could study it, and they could emerge from it into an engagement with the art form. The classical record industry was very largely responsible for its own demolition, and what remains are a number of large loss-making labels, or loss-making in the sense that their new products lose a fantastic amount of money, and they're kept afloat on a century of backlist, and a lot of little labels that are being kept afloat basically by the idealism of their owners. There are also a lot of startups, a lot of musicians who are starting their own labels, a lot of people who are saying, well, we don't need to do anything by the old rules. This is what's important to me now. This is what I want to play. Here is where I'm going to play it. I will market it as best I can. And some of those new recordings are really quite extraordinary. A blog is unmediated. A blog comes straight from me to you. Anything that I do in a newspaper, anything I do in broadcasting, involves other people, involves a process of prior discussion. I know what I want to do, but I then go and discuss it with my colleagues, and we refine it, and then I go and write it, and then they come back to me with comments, and there is a process of editing. It's very fruitful, very engaging, and it produces a hard nugget of something for the public to latch onto. A blog is less premeditated. It's something that feels just right for the moment. You've got something on your mind, you say it, people either like it or they don't like it, they come back to it. Sometimes it's something you write in the heat of a moment. You've just come in from a performance and there's something you really need to say. You've just read a review that you felt was either absolutely right or totally askew and you want to respond to that. You want to play with an idea, you want to hear what other people say, so you can put the thing up with any number of questions on it, and then you can Twitter it. And there are so many ways of engaging people in cultural discussion, making people think about the civilization around them, and stopping people from taking it for granted. I think we're in a time of tremendous danger. It's not just me. I mean, we know, I'm one of the so-called doomsayers of classical music. I'm one of those who's been predicting disaster for years in the hope of averting it. Much the same way as the prophet Jeremiah did. He said, if you don't repent and repair your ways, the temple is going to be destroyed. But when the temple was destroyed, he was there giving them comfort. He didn't want it to happen. He hoped things would change. Well, things haven't changed, and we are hit by this double whammy of new media and a massive economic upheaval that will not go away. We are not going to see recovery in the arts for, I think, at least 4 or 5 years. And although I think the worst wave hasn't yet hit us in Europe, in the United States, there is absolute devastation across the land. What we're seeing is an almost divergent response between the two continents. In Britain and in Europe, people are trying to invent themselves out of recession. They're coming up with new ideas, new programs. They're taking risks. In the United States, they're playing it ever more safely. They're taking anything off the program that might not sell. It seems to me that there is only one way out of this pit. You do not save your way out of a depression. You spend your way out of it. You risk your way out of it. You follow the dictates of your art and of your imagination and of your vision and of your invention. And if you don't do that, you're in trouble. But I do believe that there are enough people around who are really putting their minds as to how to make classical music look new once more. And we're seeing signs of recovery patchily and locally and in different places, and that's really interesting.